Jealous Spoons, we are here with Mina Elias, and we are talking all things product dev today. So excited to have you with us. Mina, welcome to the show, man. Good to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, man. I know this is a long time coming,
It
and
is a long
I
time
don't know
coming. Yeah, we,
what
we arranged
happened.
to talk a while ago, and it's great to be able to talk to you. I've heard great things about you from private conversations with trusted friends that we both know. So that's always in the end, the greatest endorsement, isn't it? Never mind some public thing. It's somebody whose opinion you trust. And so we're going to talk product dev because I think it's one of the areas that everyone obsesses about the on Amazon marketing stuff. Like that's the magic bullet. But the truth is that the hard work of getting product made at the right price and that really delivers for the consumers, I think, is the key. And this is something that I personally recognize now my absolute weakness in. And I, therefore, um, I'm delighted to talk to people who are really good at it. I've got some clients who are very good at it as well, and it's always, I think, an underexplored area. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk a little bit about how the current challenges, how you're meeting them. You're a super smart guy with some very smart responses to some big challenges that we're all receiving. So say to everyone who's listening live, you're listening live or on the replay. If you're listening live, please do put any comments in. If we don't get to them live, then we'll happily come back and answer them afterwards. So do put any comments, questions you have for Mina, a man who knows a heck of a lot about a lot of different areas on Amazon, I'm telling you. So make use of that. And then other than that, what we're going to do is our usual practice. We're going to record a podcast kind of formally in the middle, which is going to go out as a separate thing. So that's the plan. So Mina, you get to do
I'm
the
always
podcast.
good. I'm
Yeah,
always
let's
ready.
always ready. Check you out. Yeah, I believe you. You're one of those people. So
Yeah.
here we go. Here's the actual podcast recording. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the 10K Collective podcast, the place to be for 6, 7, and 8-figure Amazon sellers and e-commerce sellers, especially those who want to work towards a 7-figure exit and enjoy the process, which is really important in these days. We're here with Mina Elias of MMA Nutrition, a real master product developer, I would say, and a passionate e-commerce seller and passionate entrepreneur. So, my friend, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. You're too kind, man. You're very generous with the compliments.
Hey, look, I like your energy and your passion for your businesses, and it really comes across. So, we are going to talk about product development today. So, obviously, you are very passionate about nutrition, and you're quite the athlete. I know you're in the gym at like 5 in the morning and crazy things. Like I'm such not a morning person. Even being awake at 5 a.m. is an achievement for anyone. So, obviously, you've got a real connection personally to this product. Tell us a bit briefly about your background. Let's assume you had the day job and you quit it and all that, the usual sort of story, which is not a small thing. But tell us a bit more specifically about how you started building the brand and the product. What made you start in the first place? How did you even get into the whole thing?
Cool. So I'll start at the
I tell you what,
beginning.
I'm so sorry to say this. Massive incompetence on my part. I didn't
Mhm.
press the record button. Can
It
we do
said
that bit again? I'm so
it
sorry.
warned me. It warned me that you're recording. Are you sure? Or was that a warning that I'm live?
No, we're live, but we're not. We didn't
Oh, okay.
record. So
Not
this is
recording.
a
Okay.
live
No worries.
script. So everyone, this is how it works behind the scenes when I'm not paying attention. Let me try again. So I press recording. Let's try again.
Great.
Ladles and jealous spoons, boys and girls, welcome to the 10K Collective podcast, the place to be for 6, 7, and 8-figure Amazon private label and custom product sellers, especially if you're looking to build a business that's sellable and enjoy the process. Today, we are talking to Mina Elias of MMA Nutrition, master developer of products, I would say, and that's an area that I think is very neglected, partly because it's hard, but it's really important to get it right, and you have happy consumers and plenty of profit. So, Mina, warm welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me. And it's perfect introduction right there.
Very kind. You're a very passionate man. I know you're a huge sportsman yourself, and you've got into sports nutrition not just as some kind of, oh, I might make a bit of money on this, but there's a deep background there. So tell us a bit about how you got into the area. How did you end up choosing a sort of niche, if you like, and how did you get started with that whole process of product development?
Yeah, to give everyone a background, I have been obsessed with supplements ever since I was a kid. I don't know if it is deeply rooted in the fact that I believe that maybe supplements going to be that silver bullet that was going to change my body. But I still remember when I was think 14 or 15, I picked up my first supplement ever, and it was a fat burner, and it was by Twin Lab. And Twin Lab is a company that's like long gone now. No one knows anything about them anymore, but they were pretty big back then. And I was thinking like, if I took this pill, I'm gonna get shredded. And then I discovered amino acids, and I talked to some people at the gym about amino acids, and they're like, yeah, like you got to take 6 pills a day. And I started taking 6 pills a day. I said, that's it, this is the one, this is going to make me huge, and I'm going to be ripped. So I've always had this obsession with supplements, and I don't know why, but I still remember even when I was 12 years old, my mom would go to the mall to shop, and she knew that I would go to GNC and I would stay at GNC the entire time, 3 hours, not like in GNC. And she was very happy because she never had to worry about me once she was at the mall. And I would read the label, the front and back, and every single ingredient on every single product. Now, it wasn't until I was maybe 16 or 17, and the internet was starting to grow a little bit more, and I would research every single ingredient. But unfortunately, I didn't know how to research well, so I would just read articles. And if anyone knows anything about articles, anyone can write them. I write blog articles on my website. They're not by a doctor or a registered dietitian or anything. It was simply just articles for SEO. And it's like, what are the top 5 amino acid supplements? And then, I'm going to say some sort of reference to my product, and, oh, wow, please buy my product, that sort of thing. And so that's what people have been doing. And that's what I was reading. But then I realized that that's not the way to go about research. And I, started my chemical engineering and chemistry degree in around 2010. And when I started getting into chemical literature and understanding how to identify like what's peer-reviewed studies and all of these kinds of things. And then I started doing more research. And this is all for one purpose, is to identify which compounds and supplements will make me a better athlete, like will make me leaner, bigger, more endurance, more strength, everything. And so this research just came naturally, and I went from looking at bottles to researching online to understanding clinical studies and peer-reviewed research, and reading about it. And I got books and all of this stuff. And so I had a very thorough background in supplements pre anything entrepreneurship. And then when that moment hit, which was, and in 2013, I started fighting MMA. So I started training wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and striking, and started competing. And around 2018 was that breaking point in my corporate life, where I realized that this is not what I want to be doing, and this is a dead end. And there was a conversation with my dad while I was on vacation, and I was doing again that thorough research into protein powders and supplements. And I was looking at a protein powder that was an egg protein powder, and any flavoring was only like natural cacao based flavoring, and there was no stevia, all this stuff. And he was like, what are you doing? Like, you're so in deep research doing this stuff. And I said, I'm just trying to find the right protein, and I can't. And he said, you should make your own. And that was kind of like the light bulb moment for me. And when he said that, I said, what are you talking about? Like, it's so impossible to make a supplement brand. Like, these are like millions. Don't you need like 100,000? And that's the problem, is so many preconceived notions. And I thank God for YouTube and the internet and all these entrepreneurs that are blowing up, because all of my friends still have preconceived notions, and they think that starting a business is this massive thing, when it's just like, not really. It's just solving a problem. But I said, I don't know, it's probably going to be too expensive. And he said, well, how much? And when he asked that question, it triggered me to have to answer it. And because I didn't have the answer, I said, I don't know, let me find out. And I did research, and I said, okay, let's hypothetically say I were to create a pre-workout, a better pre-workout, like the best pre-workout. And it's going to have, beta-alanine and betaine and creatine and, huperzine A and all of these different ingredients that are going to improve my performance, and caffeine, all this stuff, and the 3 different types of caffeine. So I went and I said, okay, let's simplify this. If I bought the raw ingredients on Amazon, so I typed in first of all, I did the research. I said, okay, I know what I'm going to create. This is going to be the supplement facts, because I knew supplements so well like that. I knew which ingredients I was looking for when I was buying a pre-workout. And I said, okay, if I did this, at a serving size of 5 grams. And I created a supplement. So I need 150 grams total, 5 grams times 30. And then I bought the raw ingredients from Amazon, and then I mixed them up and spun the whole thing around and put a label on it, like, bought a bag or a container, bought a sticker. How much would all that cost? And so I broke it all down, and it was going to cost me $5. And I said, it's selling on for $30 on Amazon. Like, this is wow. And so I said, okay, worst case, I could probably just buy a bunch of stuff on Amazon and mix it and buy these bags or containers. I thought bags were cheaper at the time, but containers are just as cheap. But if I bought these bags and containers, and then I bought these stickers and put them on, and the FDA labeling guideline is online. So you can just go to the FDA and download their labeling guideline, and you can literally just follow. And here's a pro tip, quote unquote pro tip. You can just go to Whole Foods, because that they audit the supplements that come in there, and you can like duplicate exactly a pre-workout that they have in there in terms of the labeling, and then just change like the wording. Just don't make any claims, change the wording up. But you can see exactly how everything needs to be displayed. They have a distributor address. You have to have distributor address. They have a barcode. You have to have a barcode, all that kind of stuff. So that's how I got started into creating the first supplement. And the reason that I created it was, so it's an electrolyte powder that enhances performance and endurance. And a lot of people don't know this, but when you sweat, you're losing a lot of salts. And then we're compensating with water. And so you're sweating, losing all of these different salts, sodium, potassium, magnesium, and you're just drinking water every single day. And if you don't replenish that, the muscles need those electrolytes, because there's an electrolyte water balance in the body, and it has to stay at equilibrium. So if you have a lot of water and not enough electrolytes, the body's just going to flush the water. If you have a lot of electrolytes and not enough water, then you're going to have like some of these issues that people talk about when people eat a lot of salt. But if you increase your water intake, increase your sodium and potassium, magnesium intake, your muscles will absorb water better, which will make them perform better. And so at the time, I was an MMA fighter, but I was also on keto, on the ketogenic diet. And on the ketogenic diet, your body flushes sodium even faster than normal, because your, kind of blood sugar is very steady, and your liver can't hold the sodium as well. So I said, okay, I need something. And I would feel it in MMA. Like I would train really hard, especially the conditioning classes. It's a hot room, you're sweating. And then I would be like, man, like, I don't feel good. Like there's something like I'm trying to hydrate with water, but it's just not doing the job. And I looked into it, and I said, there's my issue. I don't have enough electrolytes in my body. And when I started really taking a lot of electrolytes, then I felt like my endurance went up, my muscles wouldn't get as fatigued. I could finish a 2-hour workout, and then in 5 minutes feel fresh again, ready to push for another 2 hours. And so, when that happened, I said, that's my issue. I'm on keto. My body's flushing out all of these electrolytes. I need more electrolytes. So I went on Amazon, and I typed in, high sodium electrolyte or sodium electrolyte, and there was nothing. And I said, dude, like, this is a problem. And so what I did was I talked to my jiu-jitsu coach, who was also on keto. He's also diabetic. And he said, yeah, you know what I do? Just buy chicken broth. So I literally bought chicken broth, and I was drinking a cup of chicken broth or 2 cups of chicken broth, because it had such high sodium, every single night. And, as you can imagine, it's not really fun drinking 2 cups of chicken broth every night. And so I'm like, I need a faster way to do this. And I started dry scooping chicken broth. So I got like the chicken, the bouillon, the powder, and I was dry scooping it. And this whole thing kind of led into, okay, there needs to be a better solution to this. And that's what kind of pushed me into creating the electrolyte powder. So I ended up doing the research. I looked at clinical studies. I saw, what ingredients promote, the absorption of electrolytes into the body. What are the main electrolytes that are needed in the body? Is there anything else that I need for it to kind of be well absorbed? What are the dosages? And looked at everything from, what cyclists were taking, and then a study performed on Olympic cyclists and all of this kind of stuff. And I came up with the formula, and, and then I had a formula. I ordered the ingredients, mixed it up, put it in containers. I gave it to my friends. I said, I didn't say it was my company. I said, a company trusted me with this new formula. they want people to try it. And they tried it. They said, dude, this stuff like works really well. What is it? And then I let them know that it's my brand. They didn't believe me initially. But yeah, the rest is history from there. But it was essentially the story of creating a solution to a problem.
Wow, that's you're definitely a very classic kind of American entrepreneur in the sense that you're very, very um, overachieving in everything you do. So that's kind of amazing and inspiring and kind of intimidating in equal measure. I guess that my advice to somebody, developing product would probably be a little bit scary if I said, right, you need to start 10 years ago and obsess about this for 10 straight years and get a degree in it. So obviously you have
No,
an
but you don't have to
incredible,
get a degree.
well,
Like
that's what I was going to say. I
you
mean,
can just obsess about it.
yeah. Okay. So tell me a little bit. I mean, obviously, as you said, just solving problems for people. And I guess that, the decision of who to help came from your own, you were scratching your own itch, really, weren't you? In a very, very major way. And like you were deep, deep, deep diving into it. I love this chicken broth powder idea. I've just got this idea of you miserably spooning in this
It was
dry
horrible. I
bouillon,
would
which
come
is
from the
disgusting
gym.
because it's so
It's
salty. I use
yeah.
bouillon in cooking. As you can tell, I'm not my physique. I'm not a no athlete, but I use bouillon in cooking. And the idea of eating it is disgusting. So I could see why there was a motivation. But
But it
so
was
how
like
do
nine. It was 9:30 at night. I come back from training. I'm like, oh my god, and I just like, but just scoop it, chug some water, call it a day. Like versus having to heat it up in the microwave and waiting for it to come out and then sip on it. And I'm like, I just want to be in bed already.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So, for ordinary mortals who aren't necessarily going to spend 10 years of their life obsessing about something in the same extraordinary focus that you have, how do people go about sort of trying to do a version of what you did without, having to be, quite so dedicated? Because I mean, I'm very, very impressed. I'm kind of like not surprised you're successful now that I hear how incredibly deep you've gone into this. Like, you're going to be producing something that does a better job. It's kind of inevitable. But how does somebody recreate that without a 10-year dedication like you had?
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think you need 10 years. I just it just so happened, right, that that was like kind of where I was, and I'm like, okay, well, cool, this all helps because I didn't decide to go and create like a car part, right? If I was going to create a car part that was going to make my car go faster, it would have been a different kind of deep dive. It just so happened that what I wanted to create in my background work, but actually, I've done it again two times. I've done it once with a friend as a case study, and we'll talk about this case study that I created, and I've done it again with my girlfriend. And actually, my girlfriend came up with everything, and it only took her a few months, I think 3 months. So she was able to do it, but it was a very, when it comes to ingredients and supplements, it was a very simple system of, okay, let's identify what the problem is, and then let's identify every single ingredient in the market that solves this problem. So let's say it's sleep. We're talking melatonin, valerian, GABA, all of these different ingredients that promote sleep, and then doing research, and there's Google Scholar out there. So all you have to do is type in the name of the ingredient and then the clinical studies, and look at the clinical studies and look at the research and say, like, is this actually an effective ingredient in solving this problem? And if so, at what dosage? And then make sure that any clinical study that you use, there is a p-score of less than 0.05, which means it's a statistically significant result. And it's as simple as that. And what my girlfriend did is she said, okay, let me identify every single ingredient that solves this problem that she was trying to create in her product. And then she identified that. She then went in, looked at the clinical studies, identified the dosages, identified which ingredients were just hype and which ingredients weren't. If there's any marketing ingredients necessary. So, for example, if lion's mane is a huge craze right now, if you're going to create a pre-workout, just throw some lion's mane in there, even though it does not show that, it's going to promote your performance or your anything. I mean, it's going to promote your cognitive ability, but it doesn't significantly improve your workouts. But since it's such a hype, you can add it in there, even in insignificant amounts. I mean, it's not the most ethical and value add way of doing things, but still, like, marketing is marketing. If I offered you a really good supplement and I said this tastes horrible, you're not gonna want to drink it. So it's the same thing. Like, there's certain things that you kind of have to work with to market the product better, and one of them is marketable ingredients, and the other one is also flavor, like I mentioned. So
Yeah.
anyways, once you have that kind of list, your short list of the ingredients that are effective, Then it's simply buy those ingredients, mix them, test them, test them on other people, and do a little bit more market research. But the idea all stems from this. It's creating a solution to a problem that's better than everyone else's solution, and validating that there's demand for that solution. And that's the full concept. I mean, you could just cut this clip, and if you do that, you're going to be successful. But it's figure out what the problem is that you want to solve. It, of course, if you're doing it for money, that you're not gonna be successful at all. So figure out what the solution is, what the problem is. And the problem is I'm not getting enough sleep. The problem is I wake up in the morning and I'm groggy, but coffee messes me up. And I'll talk. This is the premise of the case study. And then another problem, I'm losing electrolytes and it's affecting my performance. And so there's so many problems out there, and not even with supplements. If you think, my friend Kian, he created a travel bag. What was the problem? He did not have a bag that could take his laptop, which would go in and out conveniently for TSA, can fit clothes, can have shoes, can have a place for his wallet and his keys and his glasses and all of this stuff. So, because he was a nomad and he wanted to kind of put a bag on and just carry it on and walk around with it, and life is good. So he created that perfect nomad bag. And so that's, again, solution to a problem. He identified all of the other bags in the market, and he said, well, this one is missing this. It's too hard to pull the laptop in and out of this one. This one doesn't have room for shoes. And then he identified all the flaws in his competitors, and he developed a better product. And it's the same thing, with my girlfriend. We did the exact same thing. We identified all of the flaws in everyone else's products, and we created a solution that's better than everyone else. And then I said, let's validate the demand. How much search volume is there on Amazon? What's the Google trend looking like? What about the keyword trending? So we looked at helium 10, we looked at the keyword trends, and a lot of the keyword trends were either flatlined or slightly going up. So I said, this is a good sign. This is not something that's seasonable. This is a problem that constantly needs to be solved. And people are constantly coming and saying, I need to solve my sleep problem. I need a sleep supplement. And then you're like, voila, here I am. I'm this sleep supplement that's better than everyone else's sleep supplement because I'm like, don't have melatonin and don't cause a dependency, and I taste beautiful, and all of this kind of stuff. So that's like the way I go about solving problems and creating products without needing to have a full-on obsession about it. I mean, you're gonna have to be obsessed at some point. So, but it doesn't need 10 years of obsession.
Yeah, I like that. It's well put. You're going to have to be obsessed at some point. I think that's a very important point to make, that um, if you're wanting to just make money, and frankly, I'm just going to fess up and say that I'm not a product development person. I find it painful and difficult, and I'm not very good at obsessing with products. I obsess about business models and nerding and finances and weird stuff like that. But I have my own personal obsessions, but it's not products. And if you're that person, then please don't develop a custom product. I don't do that now. I've got a couple of people who are very obsessive about product development, but I'm in talks with about doing some kind of partnership. May end up being that we actually end up, in full business partnership. But the point is, you got to be true to who you are, right? And I think you're obviously just very, very centered on that stuff, and your girlfriend and your friend of the case study, same thing. So I think you're absolutely right. There is something about product development experts that are kind of super focused, not to say obsessive type people. So very important point to make that. And be honest, if you're not, I would say to anyone listening, like, because I'm not, for example, but there are people out there who are obsessed with products but who don't know how to sell. You can work with them if you know how to sell, right? Obviously, you do both sides of the equation. You've got
Well,
that
I
sort of
think you can. I think anyone can be obsessed. I don't think
okay,
it's like, if you just eat, sleep, and breathe it for
yeah,
for a couple months, it's not hard. But
it's true.
you wake up in the morning and you're like, what am I thinking about? It's solving this problem. What am I thinking about solving this problem? In the bathroom, you're like, what am I thinking about solving this problem? In the shower, you're thinking about solving the problem. Everywhere, you
Yeah,
just think about, you're like, okay, where can I go to immerse myself more? If I'm supplements, let me go to the supplement store. Let me go to the vitamin shop. And I'll walk in the vitamin shop and say, listen, like, I'm browsing, so I'm gonna be here for like 2 hours. Just so you know, don't worry. Like, I know what I'm doing. And they'll be like, wow, okay, this guy is weird. But I will literally like browse for 2 hours, and I'll like look at every single detail, when it comes to the packaging or whatever, the ingredients, the whole thing. So you can become obsessed too. It's a choice. It's not like an intrinsic quality that you can't develop. I think it's just, and I don't do it all the time. It's like 3 months of obsession, develop that product, and then say, okay, we're done.
yeah, nice. I like that sort of Obsession on Demand. That sounds like a marketing course right there somehow. Like obsessionondemand.com, go here for the book and then we'll up
I'm
you
gonna
sell
go
you into
buy
the
that
course.
website one
Yeah,
second.
by the way, yeah, I don't own that website, folks. But I got there first for copyright. Anyway, so joking apart, a good point. I mean, you can turn it on and off, and I think you're right. At some point, you've got to get obsessed, but equally, sometimes you have to then step away from the product and look at it more objectively, right? So, I've got a question there. If we zoom back out, then, so you're talking very much with starting with identifying a problem, researching solutions, and at some point, we then also look at validating the market, Google Trends, obviously search volume, competition, that sort of stuff. What's the sort of order and sequence of that? Because a lot of people seem to start with Helium 10 or Jungle Scout or Viral Launch or
Mhm.
whatever it is, and they obsess about keyword research numbers, and then they just go around in a loop there forever. So where do you start? Do you start with the problem first and then look at the keywords? Would you start with keywords and then go and try to develop the problem? What's the sort of sequence there, do you think?
Yeah, I always start with what is the problem? And I usually find it in my life, because why should I solve problems in other people's lives when I have so many problems in my life? So, yeah, maybe I could do some sort of elderly product, but I'm not elderly, so I'm not going to use it. So, see, I'm not going to be as passionate about it. So, look at a problem in my life, and then I say, you know what? There's this thing that I think would be an amazing solution. And I say, okay, who's looking to solve these problems? If I were looking for this problem, I would say, for example, coffee alternative, coffee substitute, nootropic coffee alternative. And I would go and I would look at the keyword search results, and I'd see, okay, how many people are looking for this? Just to start, like, are people looking for it? So if I did put the best product in the world out there on Amazon, will someone come looking for it, find it? Or will someone even come looking for it? And then the second thing is, let me look at my competition, and it shouldn't be like direct competition. They should be kind of close competition, because you should be kind of creating a new category. When you're creating your product, you're really displacing all of the competition. But for people who have that problem and they went to Amazon and to purchase something that's going to solve that problem, how are those competitors doing? The ones that are doing 50, the ones with 50 reviews, 100 reviews, 200 reviews, 300 reviews, non-branded. I'm not talking like, Four Sigmatic came up with a product, and how are they doing? Because, they're on billboards, they have stores. I'm talking just a regular supplement that's on Amazon, 100, 200, 300 reviews. How are they doing? Are they doing $1,000 a month in sales? Okay, well, maybe this is a sign that there's not that many people looking. But if the range starts 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600 reviews, and it's like 2,000, 5,000, 7,000, 10,000, 12,000, $15,000 a month in sales. So now there's a spread of products out there, and there's demand for the product out there. So you want to come in, and basically on the menu, they see you and they're like, this is the nicest one here. This is the best one here. Versus a lot of people come and they say, I created this product like no one's ever come up with it. And I say, okay, the first thing I'm worried about is, well, is even anyone looking for it? You were looking for it, sure. And so a lot of the times the answer is no, no one was really looking for it. So that's something, to be very careful about. But once I look at the keyword demand, then I look at the competitors, what they're doing in terms of sales, and that spread of reviews versus sales. The next thing is I go to Google Trends. And then after that, I go to the stores. So I always go to physical stores, and I usually do 10 to 15 physical stores. And I ask them, I say, how is this moving off the shelf? Do people ask you for this? What are the top three, X, Y, and Z right now in this category? And I really do some thorough research. Then those are kind of the main touch points. I also have a lot of little touch points. I go to Pinterest, I look at Pinterest, I go to Reddit, and I create some threads on Reddit. I go to Facebook groups. So if I was creating a plant-based protein, I would go to all the vegan groups on Facebook, plant-based groups on Facebook, and I would say, hey guys, like, I'm looking for a protein. I didn't like this one and that one, which is, describing the problem in my life, not letting them know that I'm thinking of coming up with a solution. I would say, what should I do? Who should I go to? Da, da, da. Well, is there a product that has X, Y, and Z? Like, is my solution even out there already? Would you buy it if it's out there? And so I get the conversation going in a few groups, and that's kind of all of the different touch points that I would go through when I'm creating a product.
Amazing. This is like a sort of miniature course in product development in like 10 minutes. It's quite amazing. So great stuff. And you're very, very thorough. I like the idea of talking to physical store owners. I've heard various things about that. I mean, some of them don't necessarily have a great sense for consumers. Some of them probably do, but what they will have a sense for is their
Touch
stock
point.
movement, right? Because they will really be aware if they have to keep reordering X supplement, then that they'll know very well that that's selling. So that's a really concrete bit of information. I like it. Now, one thing I just wanted to pick up on, one thing you just said, sort of almost in passing, like you said, you should be looking at your close but not direct competition because you shouldn't really have any direct competition. So you should be creating a new category. Tell me a bit more about what do you mean by that and how do we actually go about doing that? Sounds quite difficult to achieve somehow.
Not really, because when you're creating a solution to a problem, you're first of all, look at all the solutions out there. And for example, we were let's talk about the case study, right? The nootropic coffee alternative. So out there, there is coffee alternatives, and oh, you don't want to drink coffee. Well, we have chicory coffee, or we have like all these different types of like non-coffee based coffee alternatives that you can drink. But what if I wanted something that had all the benefits of coffee without all the negative side effects? And I didn't want it just to be like what is that, the fig coffee or the chicory coffee, because it didn't give me all those benefits of coffee. So I said I wanted to create something with all the benefits of coffee without all the side effects. So essentially creating an entire new category of coffee substitutes, which was, so the product that we ended up creating was a nootropic coffee alternative. It had natural caffeine from coconut and guarana, so you got the energy there, same energy as coffee, but we added coconut cream for the MCT oils, which made it gave it a bulletproof effect, which means that instead of a spike in energy, you get a slow, sustained release of energy due to the fatty acids. Then we added lion's mane, cordyceps, and reishi to boost cognitive abilities, which mushrooms are known to do. Plus, they're also very trending right now. And then we added ashwagandha and maca, which solve the adrenal fatigue that you get from coffee and all the jitteriness stuff. Ashwagandha and maca help with that. And they're kind of like they will refresh your adrenals. And then we added, some turmeric here, some cinnamon here, and we made it taste delicious like hot cocoa. And so we kind of hit it up from all different angles, because all the different coffee alternatives, people were saying, this tastes horrible. This tastes like shit. And I'm like, okay, well, big thing here. We need our coffee alternative to not taste like any of the coffee alternatives out there, but taste delicious. And then we looked at all the different coffee alternatives. There's not enough caffeine. I still want the caffeine. I just don't want to jitter. And you don't have to jitter from caffeine if you add the MCT oil. So we essentially created a product where you're no longer competing and saying, well, Mina's product and this product are so close, but one of them is slightly different. It's like Mina's product's kind of like over there. And then, like you have a pizza, and then you have like maybe a calzone.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. Is I didn't say, go from a pepperoni pizza to a super supreme pizza. No, from a pepperoni pizza to a calzone. And
Yeah.
because maybe a calzone is easier to hold in your hand and whatever, and eat it on the go. So that's essentially what I'm talking about.
I like it. I like it a lot. So basically, you're looking at, I guess the competition is not because it's the same exact type of product, but because they're solving the same problem, but you're just solving it better.
Exactly.
So it's more problem driven. So you're identifying competition as I want energy but without jitters, and the people who try to provide that are your competitors. I get it now. So it's not so much like product or even ingredient driven demand. Maybe it's more like coffee substitute or something like that. It's almost
Problem.
like defined by what it isn't, I suppose, in that situation, right? It's not coffee, but it's kind of like coffee. Like it. I like it a
Yeah, I
lot. This
think you
is
nailed it. I think you
yeah.
nailed it. The whole thing is problem driven, because no
Hmm.
one is looking for caffeine. They're just looking for more energy. So if you can say, I'm gonna give you more energy, but I'm better than caffeine because I'm like with this new thing, then why is anyone gonna say no?
Yeah, I like it. Another way of putting it is it's benefit driven. So in other words, you're thinking, what outcome do people want when they buy coffee? They're not really buying coffee; they're buying energy, and that's true for me. Like I drink a lot of coffee. Frankly, I suppose it's kind of comforting ritual now. But the taste of coffee, I remember I used to always find it disgusting. Now I find it just it's kind of part of my ritual. But actually, what I
Crazy,
want
dude.
is the energy.
Crazy.
So you're absolutely right. I'm in the market for that. For the podcast, like that bulletproof coffee idea of the sustained energy release is very attractive. So, and I guess my sort of fear would be exactly that. I'm drinking something that's going to, I don't know, give me indigestion. It's going to, keep me up half the night, or the various fears that you've got to overcome as well, right? So, how do you, by the way, another thing that brings up, which is the whole, we talked about when to do the product keyword research, which everyone's always obsessing about. What people tend to think about less, and you've obviously very much had as a practice, is give it to your friends to try it out and get feedback from them. Because obviously, if it does keep them up half the night, you really don't want to be putting it out on Amazon yet. So, how do you even identify how people, how do you find people to even be willing to be your guinea pigs? Because not everyone's going to have friends that are MMA fighters if they happen to be producing pre-workout supplements, for example. So is there a way for people to do that if they don't happen to have a crowd of people that are natural users of the product?
Yeah, I've done it too in places where like the concentration of people that your target audiences kind of hang out. So, for example, like let's say that you're gonna do something that's more like you're gonna create maybe like a new book cover or like a 5 minute journal or something like that. I would go to the library and I would, or maybe I would go somewhere where people like meditate or something like that, because it's a journal and generally like that population would journal. And so for fitness stuff, I would go to the gyms, I would go to the yoga studios, I would go to maybe a cycling club and talk to a cycling club and say, hey, by the way, guys, like I am developing this new product. Are any of you happy to do it? I went back to my college and I went to the soccer team and I gave the soccer team, I said, guys, we have this new product. Like, I want you guys to test it out. And we tested on a few soccer players who I showed up 5 days in a row to their practices to make sure that they took it every single time. And then at the end, I said, how are you guys feeling about this? So you just have to identify where your target audience hangs out. If you're doing like a maternity product, there's like these studios where the moms are doing like this breathing exercise stuff, right? I don't have kids, I don't know, but you can always call them up and say, hey, can I come in? I have like this idea. And you show up and you say, I would love to just test this on the market. And you can always say, I know there's a lot of people international here, but you can always test it in your market. And then later on, like, I mean, if you give zero positive feedback, then it's like, okay, like let's pull back. But even if you get like a half positive feedback, then you can say, okay, we tested it here, let's kind of put a nice little package on it and say, and then hit it up like in the country that you're going to sell it, like USA, and say, okay, for that maternity group in the USA, you send an email and say, by the way, like we created this massive event here in, let's say you're in Ukraine, you say massive event in this Ukraine, and the maternity group loved it, da da da. We'd love to for you guys to try it out too. It's completely free. Like I just want feedback. I'm like genuinely just like trying to develop something, and people are people. They're nice. They're not like some you get. Yeah, sure. Let's say you get 10 no's, but you're gonna get one yes. So that's all you need.
I like it. And again, what I love about this is just this is why product development is not the same as internet marketing, because you're nowhere near the internet necessarily here. I mean, you get back to your old college, yeah, maybe you hit people up on email, but your connection was a physical connection through an institution you were associated with. I guess that could be true with old workmates or anything else. And I really like the fact that you're willing to do that thing where you go, I'm giving this out for free. I just want feedback. And I've had the experience when I've suggested this to a lot of different Amazon sellers over the years, and they kind of look at me funny and going, "You mean what, in return for reviews?" I'm like, "No, dude, we're developing a product that people want. It's not about reviews. We're not trying to sell this. We actively do not want to sell it if it turns out to be shit." So I'm now swearing my own podcast here. I shouldn't be doing that. But if something it turns out to be bad, then we don't want to scale it. And that's the bit that people have got to get their head around. It's like the first thing is people need to love the product and it needs to solve the problem, right? So that's where you seem very, very good at that. And for me, it's
And
kind of
honestly,
common
dude,
sense.
it helps so much.
Yeah.
I'm telling you this. Like Cognuro was my best creation yet, and hard work. My electrolyte supplement, that was amazing. But dude, like the power of creating a really good supplement, or a really good product, it's just unmatched. Because once you have such a really strong product, like it's so easy to market, it's so easy to drive traffic, the conversion rates, really help you scale. People are like, there's a Facebook ad agency that I talked to, and they were not willing to take some products. They said, no, we don't want to deal with that. It's not something that we would ideally want to run traffic to. It wasn't like anything bad. It was just not something they're like, this is a whatever product. But with Cognor, it's like, yeah, we'll take it on. Like, they wanted to eat it up. I talked to some venture capitalists. They loved the product. They took the checkbook out right away, because one of the hardest things is building a really good product. And once you build a really good product, really everything around it can be worked around. Like, you can improve the supply chain, you can drive traffic to it, you can have a beautiful landing page, you can do all of this stuff 10,000 times easier once you have a really good product. And then obviously, once you have a really good product, you get good branding, you get really good packaging, and you have a home run product. And then it's all it is just showing people this exists. And then once they know that this exists, you know that it's going to convert because it's a really good product. And then the word of mouth too. Word of
Yeah.
mouth is very, very powerful.
Yeah, I think what you've nailed there is that people get obsessed with that the whole private label mentality, which I was taught about by the way in the beginning, and which I know that I'm not better than that. This is why I work with people who are obsessive about products. So like you have that air as the guy who's like a messianic fervor and passion. It's so important to have that because I think everyone obsesses about how to sell. I think it's what Jim Cochran calls lipstick on a pig marketing. And like, that's just not going to fly. It's 2021. You cannot sell some rubbish packaged up nicely and expect the conversion rate to work because all that will happen is people will use it. They'll get some honest reviews. God forbid that we should actually get real reviews. And then they'll hate it. And then the conversion rate will tank. And then there goes your economics. So the finance doesn't work anymore. So absolutely love this. This has been a whistle stop amazing tour through the whole process. If people want to contact you, what's the best way people get in touch with you or learn more from you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Mina Elias, Mina. Last name is Elias, and then Facebook is the same thing, and then Instagram is at Egyptian_prescription_Elias. So hit me up anywhere. I'm pretty available and easy to find.
Amazing.
Awesome, awesome.
Good. So that's the first episode done. Are you good for another, what, 20 minutes to do the current challenges thing? Have you got to zip off? How are you
No,
placed?
we can finish it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
we have
great.
around 30 minutes, right?
Yeah, amazing. Exactly right. Good. Right then. So we're going to do another episode now if you're listening live, talking about the current challenges that everyone's undergoing, which is quite a few. Whether it's the international freight 10xing in costs, or Amazon, not allowing people to ship stuff into the FCs or whatever it is. So we're going to dive into this and get some wisdom from somebody who's on the front lines, not just kind of talking, about how nice everything is all the time, which is kind of
Yeah,
there's a little bit much of that in the podcast sphere. So I'm going to reintroduce and then we'll plunge into that episode if that's good.
perfect.
Ladles and jelly spoons. Let me get this to me and I'm going to do a new recording. Ladles and jelly spoons, boys and girls, welcome back to the 10K Collective podcast, the place to be for 6, 7, and 8-figure Amazon private label and custom product sellers. We are talking to Mina Elias. We're getting an absolute masterclass in Amazon and selling and product development from this man. So we are going to talk today about when life is a little bit tougher than all the advertised sitting on a beach kind of, accounting your passive income and the realities of how to deal with that. So first of all, welcome back to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me again.
You're such a live wire. We're going to plug into some of that energy now and get some can-do juice into this current situation. So obviously, the big current challenges, I would say, and I'd be very interested to hear what challenges you're experiencing, and above all, how you're handling them. I would say it's obviously international freight's getting incredibly expensive. Maybe it's 8x, maybe it's a 10x, i.e. 1,000% increase on this time last year. It's really delayed. Sometimes it's taking, China to UK or USA is taking double the usual times. Amazon PPC seems to have jumped up about 50% year on year. Maybe it's even more at the time of recording in October 2021. And not least, also Amazon FCs, the old warehouses, are not accepting stuff from some of us sometimes, and sometimes, as usual with Amazon, changing it quite quickly and without giving allegedly any good reasons. So these are the problems I'm seeing out there. What are you experiencing, and what are your solutions to these big things? What are you grappling with?
Yeah, so I have a few problems myself. When you talk about Amazon rising costs of PPC, it's definitely a real thing, and I don't think that it's inhibiting enough yet. And I just want to kind of explain to people like the way that I think about it when I look at the entire funnel. But essentially, what we're doing is we're launching campaigns on Amazon and we're getting impressions. And then through those impressions, the products are getting a certain number of clicks and we get a click-through rate. And then through those number of clicks, we're getting a certain conversion rate, and then we get a conversion rate. And so the different stages here I see are, what is the cost to drive one unique visitor to our listing, and then for the same amount of impressions, how can we get more people into our listing, and then for the people that are in our listing, how to get more people to convert. So essentially, I have the three KPIs: cost per session, click-through rate, and conversion rate, that I'm really focused on. And I will make a list of every single thing that I can fix to, or that I can split test to improve my click-through rate and my conversion rate. Cost per session, we're not gonna, I mean, I'll cover it really quickly. Actually, it's a PPC, that's like my bread and butter. But with click-through rate, it's the main image, the title, the reviews, the rating, the price, if you have coupons, all of this stuff. So I'm constantly testing different main images, and pickfu.com is a really good test for that. If you don't want to go straight live test, I love to go straight live test, but if you maybe don't have the courage to go straight live test, you can always go to Pickfu and you can put your main image with a new main image next to it. Some people will say, well, what are you split testing on the main image? It's packaging, it's orientation, it's one of my supplement bottles, I put a little star that looks like it's part of the product, but it not really is. But it says 100 servings or 25 cents per serving, whatever, just kind of to change things up and see if any of these different main images, and I have one where the product is right there, one where the product is shot from up and kind of turned to the side. So I'm testing all these different things. I'm adding different coupons, I'm adding different a dollar or a percentage or this or that, and I'm trying to hone in on the highest click-through rate possible, and since if we're split testing price or whatever, to achieve the highest profitability. So trying to really move the needle there. With conversion rate, it's again, I'm testing different images. Out of the 8 images, I'm adding different videos. I'm changing the bullet points and the description. I'm changing the title, moving keywords around. Same with the price and reviews and all that kind of stuff. And then also at the bottom, adding different questions, trying to, using Amazon posts, whatever, to get those Amazon posts on the product detail page. So I'm testing every single thing, and I have a change log, and the change log says the date of the change, the field that was changed, the old value, the new value. I have one per SKU. So, but if you want to do it all in the same one, you can just put the SKU or the ASIN or whatever, and then any notes. And and a click-through rate, conversion rate. So every single time I make a change, I will snapshot the click-through rate and the conversion rate, and then since the last change. And then from there, my goal is to always, every single time that I change something, look at the click-through rate and conversion rate, see if it improved. If I did something that improved it, I'll keep the change. If I did something that didn't, I'll switch it back. And it's always test every single week, like very aggressively testing every single thing possible to improve that click-through rate and conversion rate. Why? Because I'm buying this traffic, and you're buying that traffic once. And once you buy that traffic, you can get 100 clicks, or you can get 1,000 clicks from it. You can get 10 sales, you can get 100 sales from it. It's the same. You bought that traffic once, so it's going to be the same. So from there, I'm really trying to get the most juice out of my squeeze, essentially. And then we move on to the cost per session. So I'm launching these campaigns, and the things that I'm looking out is, okay, do I have any keywords that are a little bit higher ACOS than desired, or the ROAS is not where it needs to be? I'll lower the bids a little bit. Do I have any keywords that are spending and not making the money that I need to? I'll lower the bids there. Do I have keywords in the auto and broad and phrase campaigns that are, again, underperforming? They're either spending too much and not making enough sales, or they're spending and not making any sales. I'll negative those. That's all to cut the cost per session, because my goal here is to, for the same amount of sessions that I'm getting, get it at the lowest price. And then from there, get more sessions at that price. And you know, we can also say, okay, for these keywords that where it didn't work out, where they were sponsored products, what if I launch a video campaign? What if I launch a headline search campaign? What if you know, utilizing these different placements to again try and get a new customer for cheaper than what I'm getting now, or get more customers for that same price. And so those are the three KPIs that I'm hitting. And so that's kind of in that sense of PPC spend on Amazon is going up. That's how I'm figuring that's a problem out. And you know, it is a problem, but the only thing that it forced me to do is what I'm telling you right now, is just to, maybe life was good 2017 and 2018, but now it's like a little bit tougher. That's all. So it's nothing inhibiting. That's my first
Nice.
point.
Wow. Yeah. So that's a really rigorous process you got going there. By the way, it's simple, simple point, but having a change log is so. As soon as you said it, I'm like, yeah, of course. But it's one of those things that's very easy to skip. You get in there, you change stuff, and then you move on, and then you haven't clocked it. And of course, that seems like if you're very action oriented and you don't respect the value of data enough, that doesn't seem that important. But of course, what we really want is the data, right? If I change X, Y changes in the data, and you're so right to really be meticulous about that. I guess that's where your like scientific training really kicks in, right? Your that background and the
Yeah.
chemical engineering and stuff.
And it
So
took me a while. Yeah.
yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, it does sound pretty rigorous. So the other thing is obviously we're talking about some of these shortages and supply chain issues and stuff like that. I know you got a few solutions to that. So I would broadly classify this as you've got a lot of plan Bs in your business. So tell us a little bit about how that all works. How have you put that together?
So, you know, one of my problems was the container problem. So I sell supplements, they're in a container, and I got a call from my manufacturer, and he said, Mina, I'm warning you right now. And this is again, thank God for my really, really good relationship with my manufacturer, because probably he wouldn't, if we didn't have a good relationship, if I didn't call him every single week asking about his wife and kids and all this stuff and sending him gifts to his house all the time, he would never pick up the phone and tell me this. But he picked up the phone and said, there's going to be a massive shortage in containers. I'm letting you know right now, like figure something out. And I'm like, you know, stressing at home, and I'm like, man, what can I do? And so you know, it came to me, and this was also like through the conversation with him and stuff like that, but we came to the conclusion that I need a backup form of that container. And it can't be anything China based or whatever, because then you're defeating the purpose. So either I'm going to get it maybe from Mexico or something, or I'm going to get it from the US. And something that's made in the US is aluminum foil bags. So the bags that you see, some of the protein powders, the teas, whatever that are in, those are all fully made in the US. The raw materials are in the US. Everything's in the US. So there's not really going to be a shortage anytime soon. So what I did is, for every single product that I had, I created a 2 to 3 month supply of bags for that product. And then I said to my design team, I said, we have a bag now. I want you to duplicate everything that we have on the website, on the Amazon listings, everything, but switch out the bottle for a bag. And the second that I hit that problem, which is so far we haven't hit the shortage yet, but and run completely out. But if I ever had hit that point where we run completely out, then instantaneously I can switch everything on the Amazon, all the listing images, all the enhanced brand content. I can switch everything on the website, and my manufacturer will send in you know, new bags, and you know, or it's nothing, it's like nothing ever happened. So that was kind of my first solution to that.
Yeah, amazing. And by the way, little hint that you buried in there, having a great relationship with the supplier is so important. Again, it's not just about getting a lower cost or something like that. In this case, it was about having a heads up about supply chain shortage. They're going to see it before you do, right? So, really, something people don't talk about enough is that communication flow with the supplier. Often, it seems to be a sort of adversarial relationship rather than like if you both communicate really effectively, then both of your lives are going to get better, right? So really super smart. And what I also love is the fact that you've got your plan B absolutely nailed and ready to go. As opposed to just panicking, which is like the default in this situation. So that's incredibly proactive, and like hats off for that. So I know that obviously one of the other things we've got is that supply chain costs are up for a lot of raw materials. So tell us about your solutions there.
Yeah. So a couple of times I hit that like high supply chain cost issue. And the first one was, he called and he said, one of my ingredients just quadrupled in price. And I said, are you serious, man? And I think he said, he's like, yeah, I quadrupled in price, and probably I can only get you stuff to last you for like 6 weeks. And I said, okay, what about after the 6 weeks? He said, yeah, like there's nothing is guaranteed. So one of the things that solution that I came up with was, and this might not apply to everyone, obviously, because it's very supplement specific, but I decided to change my labels. And instead of having a very like strict labeling, which I said I have this much of this ingredient, this much of this, I created a blend in which that product, in which that ingredient was in a blend. And once I did that, it gave me a little bit more flexibility to kind of, if that ingredient is almost out, then I can use a different ingredient because it's all in a blend. And so I'm not restricted as long as the whole blend reaches that, number of grams, there's no issues with that. So it's one of those things where I kind of was given a constraint, and I said, okay, what is all of the constraints that I have to meet, and what is truly set in stone and what is not? Because in reality, I could have just recreated new labels and then and completely remove that ingredient and put something else in. So it's always good to really dig deep and investigate what is my true constraints, because nothing is really a constraint. It's always like what you want, and then what is available. So and there's a lot to work with. So maybe someone is developing a product that requires like these different parts from China, and the price went up. But what if you change the product slightly? It's still going to solve the same problem, but you're not using these parts anymore, you're doing something else, and maybe it's a temporary thing, and then you switch it back. And a lot of people think like once you have a product out there, it's stuck and it's unchangeable. And I don't think that's true. I think you change it a lot because the whole world is changing, and if whatever one ingredient is out, it's out. And so that's kind of one way that I combated that. But also I have to be real, like I raised my prices like everyone else did, and inflation is happening. I raised my prices a significant amount. My manufacturer raised this, but I told my manufacturer, is there anything you can do? My cost of goods went up to $2. And he's like, listen, like we thought about it so much, and it's like there's nothing we can do. We just have to increase the prices. And inflation is going to happen, and I'm sure all the restaurants are increasing their prices, and everyone is, all the stores are increasing their prices. So sometimes things are just, inflation is inflation.
Absolutely. So I would say a couple of things. First of all, I really like what you're thinking about the solutions around the products. Like you say, identifying the real constraints and what is set in stone. And I guess, as you say, as long as you're not mismatching a promise or something on the label with what people actually get, because that will get you kicked off Amazon and might be illegal. But I can't get that side.
Unless
Nothing's
you
really
change the
set in
label
stone,
too,
is it? Yeah, exactly.
right?
So you just make sure there's a match between the two, and then suddenly nothing's really set in stone, is it? You're just offering a different thing. So
Yeah.
you have to have the mental flexibility to do that, I guess. But also, yeah, as you say, raising prices. That the entire theme of the last mastermind meeting I had with this seven, and in some cases even almost eight-figure sellers in London that we meet with, was basically the conclusion was prices are going up on our buy side. Consumer inflation is a real thing, so let's have the cojones, the stones to raise our prices. And in some markets, they'll be the first people to move, and that's kind of scary. But I don't think that your competitors are going to be far behind. I mean, what's your view on that? I mean, are you following other
All of
people
my
in raising your
competitors.
prices, or were you the first to do it in some of your markets?
No, I wasn't the first to do it. I think a couple have done it. I was one of the few, the first to do it. But I look at my market now, and everyone across the board has raised their prices. The only ones that haven't are the ones that are using cheap ingredients. And like there's a couple of electrolyte powders that is just all sugar. And I mean, when 90% of your formula is sugar, it's not really a big deal for them. So they didn't have to raise their prices. But yeah, maybe you can trick a few uneducated consumers, but the general population is going to see that this is not a good product. And again, there's something about the psychology of pricing. And if everyone is priced at 28 and you're priced at 19.99, like it's 3 years ago, people might say, yeah, there's something wrong with this product. So I think I'm still in line with where I was with my competitors. So I still have the competitors that were more expensive are now $3 more expensive. The competitors that were a little bit less expensive were still like $2 less expensive, and I'm still in that range. And someone once told me you should always be competing on offer, not on like the value, which is like a super kind of like it really hit me. It's like someone should never look at your product and start judging based on the price, because if that happened, then your offer is not compelling enough, and that's like an issue. But once your offer, like if you showed up and you saw like a Lamborghini or whatever, and someone said, yeah, it costs this much, you're not going to be like, well, let me see what the closest second to a Lamborghini is and kind of choose that option, because that's the like the offer is the Lamborghini comes with the status of a Lamborghini. You're not going to get the status of a Lamborghini with another car. So, you're kind of, this is it. You're going to pay for it. You're either going to pay for it or not. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that really stuck with me too.
Either that or you end up with a Lexus, which is like the poor man's Lamborghini, and you're basically advertising that you couldn't afford a Lamborghini, but you kind of aspire to one. You're better off getting a Mercedes. Anyway, my view. I mean, but yeah, you're right. The offer thing, to your point that you were making in the previous episode about the creating you were saying you should look at what you think is your close competition because you shouldn't have direct competition. I guess in this kind of scenario, this is when it really shows up, right? If you're selling something that is a substitute for coffee, in other words, it gives you the benefits that coffee gives you, i.e., the energy hits, but without the downside, jitteriness, a sort of spike, and then a trough in blood sugar, right? Then there shouldn't be any direct A/B price comparison, right? It shouldn't be a comparison shopping site from what you were saying. And so it strikes me that this is the acid test, isn't it, really? When you have to raise your price, do people still buy your stuff because what you offer is unique? What's your
Yeah.
experience with that? I mean, does when you've raised your prices, well, okay, I should ask the question: have you raised your prices where the competition hasn't, and how drastic is the effect on your conversion rate, your sell through and stuff?
So I most recently raised my price about $5 and a unit, and I maybe took a 20% hit in my revenue, but my profits are significantly higher. So all in all, the EBITDA of the business is still really good.
Yeah, and this is one point that I keep trying to make to people. I'm like, Amazon wants you to play the game where you obsess about, unit volumes as being as high as possible. But actually, if you want profit, you could probably sell a heck of a lot less in terms of units or even revenue and make more profit. And this is something that kind of is obvious. It's like, accounting 101, but people don't actually do it, do they? I mean, what do you see? I don't know if you coach clients and things in this, but what sort of
I
patterns
love
do you
that. I love
see?
that you brought this up, because I spoke about this at a conference recently in August, and I was saying like there is a very fine balance between like profit, or there's like a balance between profit and scale. And so one of my products, just one product, was selling 70,000 units, 70,000 sorry dollars a month, and the net profit at the end of the month was something like $15,000, and it was a lot of PPC spend and all of this kind of stuff. And then I said, you know what, like let me see if I can really like cut down, and I cut down a lot of the PPC spend, and my sales went from 70 to like $40,000 a month, and I still had the same amount of profits. And I said, why was I doing this? I mean, the numbers look nice when you want to like brag to some people, but like, who cares? I stopped. Even the only people that know my numbers are my accountant and stuff, like my advisors, just so they can make like accurate decisions. But I don't care about sales numbers anymore, because I know people who are making so much money in revenue and then taking home a lot less than I am, or maybe not taking home anything from their business. So at the end of the day, I was like, why am I reordering so many times from my manufacturer? Why am I picking up the phone so many times and calling my manufacturer saying, hey, how's it going? What's the status on this product? When at the end of the day, I made the same amount of profit, and my business was going to be valued the same, because your business is valued on a gross profit or sales discretionary earnings. It's not valued on your revenue number.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing that I keep trying to drive home to people. I'm like, look, you can't pay yourself from revenue, so it doesn't make any difference to your personal income from your business if you're paying yourself. And it won't make any difference to the value when you sell it. So it's actually a meaningless number. Like revenue, they say, turnover is vanity. This turnover is maybe a British word for revenue. Profit is sanity, and cash is king. But like, it's not only that. It's just like revenues kind of doesn't exist because it never even hits your bank account if you're selling on Amazon, right? It's a number that
Yeah.
appears in your Seller Central account, but we never get it.
It's like
It
points. It's when you go to the arcade and you get like 100 points, and they get you these tickets, and then at the end of the day, like what are you gonna get with those tickets? Because maybe they give you a million tickets and you can buy like a little teddy bear, and then you're like, wow, like this is it was pointless.
Yeah, I mean, my wife plays like Plants vs Zombies obsessively, and the thing is that she knows she's not getting paid any money for this, so she's like one of the best in the world every so often. I'm like, okay, but it's just a game, and she knows it's just a game. She's not deluding herself that it's anything else, not trying to pay the mortgage with it. Um, so that aside, apart from trying to persuade people to focus on profit, which is kind of like pretty obvious and yet very rare in execution. Let's talk about happiness a bit because one of the things that suffers in this situation is that people get very very stressed and understandably, and God knows I sympathise. But it's important to enjoy your work, isn't it? Because we got into this because we wanted to be entrepreneurs, and at some level, we've got to honour that even in the difficult times. So,
Mhm.
how do you keep your head straight with this stuff, and how do you manage the workload as well? So, two different questions, taken in whichever order
Yeah.
you want.
How do I keep my head straight? And it's two things. It's number one, I try and stay like very non-emotional when it comes to the business. And the best way to do that is when you don't have a plan and you're just looking at the numbers and you're looking at sales going up and down and things like that. It's you can get it pretty emotional, and it's almost like when you step on the scale and you just see your weight is going up and you're like, like I feel bad, like I'm getting fatter. But because I have a list of like levers that I can pull, because I have a list of actions that I'm taking, and because I have a very clear list of key performance indicators, it's never, hey, my revenue went down. It's always like, did my impressions go down? Did my cost per session go up? Did my click-through rate go down? Did my conversion rate go down? What happened? Did my number of keywords that are ranked go down? And so because I have those KPIs in there, it's instead of like, oh, I just got fat, it's like, oh, I ate breakfast, too big of a breakfast, 5 days in a row. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to cut down on the breakfast. And it's the same thing. It's like, oh, I noticed that my click-through rate and conversion rate went down. Well, like, let's dig deeper. What could possibly cause it? If you can identify the issue, no problem. Just start testing different things and improve it. And so because I have that kind of approach and it's a very action driven approach, I'm never emotional about it. I'm saying, okay, my revenue went down. Let's get to the root cause. Let's break it down. Which metric suffered the most in the last 30 days? This metric suffered the most. That's cool. What are the levers that I can pull to improve that metric? Okay, let's create a plan and let's start working on it. So that's one thing. Another thing is also, I have an agency and I have a business, like a supplement brand. And a lot of people don't talk about this, but I was living off of my supplement brand and it was super emotional because the months that I did amazing, life was good. I always pulled the same amount of salary, but when I pulled the salary and the business was doing amazing, life was good. But when I pulled the salary and the business wasn't doing amazing, it was very emotional and I felt upset. And I was choking the business more than was already being choked. And so when I started the agency, I got this cash flow coming in from the agency, and I stopped taking money out of the business and started growing it as an asset. So I want to like also let people know, if you're in the process of starting an Amazon business because you think that you're going to leave your 9 to 5 job and then you're going to pull salary out of the business, I've been there. You can do it. It's just going to be very stressful because your life is on this constant roller coaster of maybe 1 month you're making good money, 1 month you're not making good money. And the only way to do that with only having an asset-based business is if you grow it big enough that you can at that point kind of pull money out without it being affected. So my friend who hit like I think 5 million or 3 million or something a year in revenue, so significant amount, and was pulling a $60,000 a year salary. So once it got that big, he was able to pull that salary out without, and even with the fluctuations, his salary didn't make a big difference. So you can either wait until you get this point, or you can maybe go and if you're unhappy with your job right now, and which is something that I would have done, is moved and gone to work for something that would help you build the skills that you're currently using to build your business, but also be in a happy environment where you don't feel like you're in a rush to quit your job so much, and still have some cash flow, but you're also developing skills that you can monetize, and then maybe become like me, where you have a service side and you use that service side to fund your life. And then if you have really good skills, it's not going to take that many hours a week, and then spend the rest of the time growing your business and reinvesting all of that money into that asset, and then sell the asset and then make the money there. So that's kind of a couple of things that help me stay level-headed. And I think times get tough, and I always think about like truly the worst case scenario. Every day I wake up, sometimes things happen, and I'm always like, what is really the worst case scenario? Like if I lose all of this, like what would happen? I would be sitting on my couch, and then what? And then I really play out the scenario, and it's usually not bad. It's usually like, okay, it's gonna suck that first day, but then I'm gonna get on the computer, I'm gonna do 1 2 3 4 5, and then I'm gonna be able to do this and this and this, and everything will come back to normal eventually. So always playing out that worst case scenario all the way to the end, as if it's like a full movie, in my head, allows me to kind of realize that none of this stuff is a big issue. It's not really a problem. It's just my emotions that make it label it as a problem.
Wow, it reminds me very much of that thing that I think Tim Ferriss talks about in the 4 Hour Work Week, which the actual title is not something I endorse or some of the stuff, but I think some of the thinking in it's very very good quality, and like that idea of playing out the worst case scenario, and then what would happen if your Amazon business absolutely blew up? Well, maybe you'd have to go and get a day job for a while. And then you still got the skills, you got the knowledge, you got the contacts. You'd probably be creating a brand within the next year. And if you don't have the money, but you have the skills, and there are people out there with the money without the skills, trust me, there people have tried to throw money at me in the past to create a private label brand for them. And I've said, look, I can't do what you want to deliver. So I'm saying no, but they had hundreds of thousands of pounds available. There are people with money out there. So I really like that I guess I'm painting a really bleak picture, but honestly, like it's not normally as extreme as that. And
Yeah.
I guess all of us experience that moment where heart-stopping moment where your main listing gets suspended for 3 weeks, or even worse. And many people I know experience the entire Amazon account suspended, and it's as a one of my clients put it, a pants-filling moment, and it's horrendous for 3 weeks. And then maybe a year later, you're like, oh yeah, that happened, and it was horrible. But five
Yeah.
years later, you're like, I can't remember which year it was now. Maybe it was December 2019, and it all falls into perspective, right? It's very very hard to do at the time, and it sounds like you're pretty good at handling that. And
Yeah.
and thank you for your honesty
It's
about the agency and the
it's
brand
better.
relationship as well.
It gets better with everything, with every bad thing. And again, I always like to tell people, it's never good or bad. It's just a thing that happened. It's a fact, and then we're labeling it as good or bad. So I try
Yeah,
and
true.
never label anything as good or bad. I mean, good, yes, it's always good to be positive, but try and never label anything as bad. But then the more that these quote unquote bad things happen, you just start getting numb to it, and you're like, it's just another day. It's just another fire.
Just another fire. Yeah, that kind of feels like an Amazon seller speaking there. That's real. That's actual real life. Yeah, but I really like the mentality that the thing you're focusing what's on under your control and finding root causes. That's really really powerful. And the other thing you were saying, which is a very interesting sort of thought, is that it always strikes me like a lot of Amazon sellers. It's a bit like you built a house that you want to, property, real estate, and you want to, you buy a plot of land, you build a house with great blood, sweat, and tears, and then you want to sell it off for a large amount more than the raw materials and labor cost you. Great. But in the meantime, you're kind of living in it, but you're living in the kitchen at one end of the kitchen, trying to make coffee and look after your kids. And then the other end of the kitchen, there's a builder with a drill. And it strikes me that some people, when you're trying to live off your business and grow an asset to sell at the same time, it's a very uncomfortable
I love that
juxtaposition, isn't it?
analogy. I use
Yeah.
that analogy all the time, and I always say, like, building an Amazon business is exactly the same as buying a plot of land. You found a piece of land and you bought it, and what did you do? You put a 15K 20K launch. So you bought the plot of land for whatever it costs, and then you're hiring the architect and engineer, and then there's whoever is going to do the zoning, all this stuff, and you're building and building, and it's a lot of putting money in and never seeing any return. And then when you rent it out, once it's all done, you might see some return. Or then when you sell the entire house with the land and everything, maybe you paid 100,000 for the piece of land and you sold the house for 750,000. So that's kind of like the analogy is, that's how your Amazon business is going to be. The second that you buy this land, you might be kind of sold on, like, some people immediately brought in like 10 tents and they made it a glamping thing, and wow, they're like cash flowing in the first month, right? And there's a lot of people that sell that dream, but not everyone can do it, and maybe they just had like some sort of exception, or maybe they're lying. But it's essentially buying and creating an Amazon business is exactly like buying a piece of land. It's an asset. It needs a lot of investment to develop. And then once it's an asset that can cash flow, someone else will come and buy it for a lot of money and say, yeah, because this cash flowing asset, I can add it to my other portfolio of cash flowing assets and create a bigger portfolio of cash flowing assets, and then share the back office or whatever. And they have better supply chain and improve these things and make it more cash and all this kind of stuff. So that's the way I would look at it. A lot of people think it's something that you can start a business and make money out of it. And maybe like 6 months in, I was making a few thousand, $4,000 a month in profits. But as soon as I started taking money, the entire business kind of plateaued and started to die a little bit. And so that's what I would warn people.
Yeah, I've heard from a lot of people that they kind of regret when if they take money out of the business too early. It's a bit like, you've got a
I
little
regret
sort
it.
of delicate apple tree and you start plucking all the stuff from it instead of letting the thing grow into a big, strong tree. As you said, you get it to $5 million in revenue and you're taking 60K out of it. It doesn't matter if the revenue fluctuates between annualized 3 million and 6 million. It's not going to make a big difference. But until that point, as you say, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having multiple income streams. People get very kind of purist about this. And like, if you've got the skills to run an agency on the side or to advise people, or maybe you work in somebody else's business and learn on somebody else's dime for a day a week, whatever. I mean, as you say, it's good to just find a way that is less,
Yeah.
like the way you put it, get less emotional, less of that roller coaster, because that's, it's part of the experience for a lot of people, isn't it? But I guess what you're saying is it doesn't have to be, which is really great to
Yeah.
hear. So look, we better let you get back to, building your empire, obviously incredibly effectively. Been fantastic to talk to you. Really feel like I plugged into the national grid here and getting all your energy and great focus. So fantastic stuff. If people wanted to speak to you or hear more from you, obviously we haven't even mentioned anything commercial at all, but you got your PPC agency and training side. I mean, why don't we talk about that just briefly?
Yeah.
Tell us what you do there.
Yeah, so in terms of the PPC, I developed that skill. I think as an engineer, I was very naturally inclined to like understand numbers and optimize and data analytics and that kind of stuff. So I got really good at it. I started sharing value for free. People started applying it. They loved it. It worked for them. I started getting consultation calls, that kind of stuff. And fast forward. I hired an employee, a couple of employees. They were managing my own stuff, and people, I had a couple of friends hit me up. They said, please, like, we're dying, we need someone to manage our PPC. Took them on, and I helped an aggregator build their in-house systems and things like that. And so at a point I realized, I have a really good skill, and there's a lot of people out there that need it, and there's a lot of bad services out there. So I started offering, the agency is called Trivium, and Trivium Group, and I started offering PPC management as a service. But I also early on created a full tactical and like technical course on Amazon advertising, Amazon PPC. It's called the ppcuniversity.com, and that's where it's like I think a 40 video course where you just go through step by step every single little piece, in every single action. And it's almost like like a driving course. It's not like selling the dream where I say, apply my PPC tactics and you're gonna, be a billionaire. It's just like, here's everything that you can do, and here's how you can adjust it, and here's all the knobs, and here's the best practices, and here's everything that I've tested and the results. And you can take that knowledge and then apply it to your own things. And every case is going to be different. But if you understand how to control and pull the levers and then interpret the data and then make adjustments after, then you should be able to handle your own thing. Or if you just want to learn because then you want to hold your agency accountable, or you want to hold your VA accountable, which I highly, highly recommend, then, I would do that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things when it comes to hiring an agency is that if you don't understand their business pretty much as well as they do, you can't really monitor their results. So, I mean, it's a very, very good point that just, it's not about fire and forget,
And
is
there's
it,
a
an
lot of
agency?
swindlers out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and to be fair, it's just constantly shifting your sand. So they may feel they're doing a good job and you may feel they're doing a good job. That doesn't mean it's objectively true. And the only way you're going to know that is if you know the business, I guess. So that's ppcuniversity.com, right, for that. So,
And the
um,
people.
yeah, it's great to talk to you, and I just feel like it's a refreshing change that you're very, very sort of focused on the operation side and very little about selling your own agency. I had to kind of prompt you to do it because you're just very focused on, doing the business, I think, and you're a living example of the kind of mentality as well as the success story. And been great to talk to you, man. Really glad we managed to hook up finally, and I hope everyone takes um, some valuable lessons from this stuff. I know
I
I
hope
have.
so too. I mean, knowledge is nothing, right? Unless you put it into action. So even if there's like a few things, out of this episode, you can always bookmark it. Like if you're listening to this in the car or something, kind of take a screenshot whenever I say something that you want to implement, and then just go back and watch those parts and write it down and just start taking action. And one thing that I want to share with everyone, it's really changed my life. It hasn't changed my life, okay, but it's improved every my business. But every month I will look at my businesses and I will create 3 goals, maximum of 3. I learned this from a friend. Her name is Amy Weiss, and I took 3 goals, and out of those 3 goals, it's like, what like, okay, what do I want to look like in 1 year? So what are 3 goals that I want to accomplish this month that will get me closer to my ultimate goal? And then each goal I break it out into 4, and then I schedule it through the 4 weeks of the month. And so that's really, at the beginning of the month, I really look and say, what are just 3 things that I want to get accomplished? And it's really been helping me kind of stay on a super straight and focused track. And if anyone thinks I'm super focused, I'm the opposite. I'm very easily swayed into attractive things. And I wanted to touch on this when you talked about other sources of income. Is I tried a lot of other sources of income, and I was like a little bit in this and a little bit in that, and a little bit, and it really kind of all hurt me in the end. So if you're like me and you have like some focus issues and you're always attracted to like these different shiny objects, I think it's a really good practice, because you always have to sit down with yourself and say, what are 3 things that I need to do this month that will move the needle in my business? And once you identify them, you break them down, you execute that month, and everything kind of moves forward.
Nice. I like that. It's nice and simple. So basically, what I want the business to look like in 1 year, set 3 goals this month to get me close to that, break each goal into 4, schedule it one per
And then
week.
one of them
Simple.
each week. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I like it. That's very, very good. And yeah, thank you for being honest about the fact that you come across incredibly focused, but maybe like everyone else, got an entrepreneurial ADHD. I mean, I'm certainly absolutely suffer from that. So I know a lot of people that do as well. So that sounds like a good sort of counterbalance to that. So really, really, really helpful little hack that actually, is pretty powerful system by the sound of it. So listen, we better let you dash on. Thank you so much for coming on, Mina Elias of MMA Nutrition. Been a real pleasure to
Yes.
talk to you.
Talk to you soon.
Okay, so folks, that's the podcast recorded. So if you're listening live with us, thanks so much for hanging out with us, or if you're listening on the review on one of the many, many social platforms out there, I'll lose track to the ones we go to. But as I said before, if you've got any questions, always that's the bit of the podcast that I love podcasts, but they're not very interactive. So if you're on one of the social media platforms, pop your comments and questions in, and we'll get to those as well. But it just remains for me to say, Mina, thank you so much for coming on live as well with everyone.